video report where you're going to see the faces of the board. You're going to experience what the board is about and what we care about, which is making sure that the archives are accessible to everyone, making sure that information gets to everyone, and making sure that we document every corner of the city. So I welcome you to the archives. I welcome you to this report, and please continue to support us.
I love walking down the street of New York and seeing spaces that have changed over time. I've lived in New York for 30 years, and then I went to school another 3 years here. And I love going by building and seeing, oh, that used to be a Benetton, and then it became a Gap, and then it became a Starbucks, and then it became something else. And you see that not just in commercial spaces and houses. So I love that. And I actually love a feature that New York Records has that has the maps of New York from the 1940s. And I love being able to see some places that have changed so much and some that are almost exactly the same. So I really love seeing the changes in how things have worked over, what things look like over time.
What interests me most about this city and its history is community. Really, the movement of folks, as folks come in and out of parts of the city, how they interact with each other, how they interact with government, how they interact with the civic life of the city.
One of the things that most interests me about New York City, especially in the present moment, is that every day we're making history. And I really love that the city is always pivoting and looking to the past to be informed about what they're doing, but also capturing everything that's new. And some of the favorite initiatives that are going on right now is the pivoting that took place since the pandemic, and also a lot of initiatives about sustainability and composting and getting communities involved for the same.
One of my favorite things about New York City is how rich the artist communities are here, and the place that those communities hold within the history of the city, and how those intermingle, they intertwine into the fabric of the city on a larger scale, and how sometimes artist becomes historian or historian becomes artist, and how they all kind of work together. Like, for example, I'm a really big fan of the artist and activist Tourmaline, and she does a lot of work kind of uncovering archives and recording oral histories about like Black communities and LGBTQ history within the city, and like producing art that is like so beautiful and so important to the history of the city.
One of the things that I think is really cool about history is that it can be interesting to anyone. It's just so vast. There's so many different subjects you can look at historically. You can think about it personally, looking at genealogy, or like finding out about your building, or like you can study history in an academic sense, or delve into really specific topics of history like science or art. So I think that, even if someone thinks that they're not interested in history, that it's really accessible, and there's a way for someone to find something in history that's exciting to them.
History is so important. It tells us where we've been, who we've been in the history. It tells us about things that we've learned and developed and maybe forgotten along the way. And all of that is so integral to who we can become in the future, and learning about each other and creating kind of like a more cohesive, richer, deeper experience.
History's important because there's that old line, and I'll totally screw it up, that we're bound to repeat things that we forget if we don't remember. And that's why history is important. The people are important, the stories are important, the paperwork is important. Was it John Hancock who signed the Declaration of Independence in big bold letters so he could let King George III know what he thought of him, that he was right there? If it wasn't for record keeping, we wouldn't have any of that. And it's crucial to determine where we were, where we are, and where we're going.
Well, one thing is kind of recognizing what archival records are. I mean, we have, sort of formal things like here, the vital records, birth certificates, marriage certificates, and death certificates are obvious things. But there are also little things things that we take in stride that, if you think about it, represent elements of an archive, like ephemera, things that weren't meant to last, but they have. Receipts, theater tickets, cut out ads, a coupon, and so often there's just information that it wasn't what you were looking for at the time, or the person that was using it in their time didn't think of it in that way. But for us looking back, they're very, very useful. They say, oh, this was, the price of eggs then, and what did that mean for the people who were buying them? So I think that archives are extremely useful, again, for just kind of getting your bearings on creating a clear picture in your mind and in dialogue, if you're sharing that in conversation with the human condition.
I think it's really important that archival records are used because, again, it gives you context. If, say, someone in a particular neighborhood that was very homogeneous, right? They go look at the archives and they see 50 years ago, there are other people who lived exactly where they lived, right? They were maybe dealing with some of the same situations that they dealt with. And that gives them commonality to kind of approach those different people in a way, understanding that they're not really different, they're the same.
When I worked at Girl Scouts, there were students that came in all the time, Girl Scouts from all over the country and all over the world, and there's this one time we were in the archive, and these kids were so bored out of their minds. They were so bored out of their minds. And I said to them, I was like, oh, why are you bored? And the mother, who was one of the troop leaders, got so upset at the kid. And I said, no, we need to know. Why isn't this interesting? It's old stuff, I don't get it. And the second you pull out an archive box that shows them that Girl Scouts in 1918 earned the same badge that they did, is just absolutely incredible.
The Wikipedia thing in particular, from a lot of my research, I've been working on the former Colored School number 4 in Chelsea on West 17th Street, and as I'm looking up a lot of the teachers and the students and the visitors who were there, so many of them have a Wikipedia page, some with this much text and some with volumes. And very often there's stuff, more often than not, there's stuff that's left out that now I've been able to find, particularly the principal of the school, Sarah Garnett, who married, Sarah Tompkins, who married Henry Highland Garnett, one of the most famous orators, ministers, abolitionists in the country in his time. And there are a lot of citations over and over that kind of repeat the same thing, that they got married, this or then or whatever. And then I was able to use the municipal archives and find a marriage certificate. And it's like, they got married on this date in this year, and it was 1875. So there are all these opportunities to connect the dots. And then my being able to share that and insert that into the Wikipedia entry. And I've talked to other historians who also looked there and said, something changed. I said, yeah, I changed that. But I was able to back it up with the citation, where I got that information, for what primary source I was able to use.
I think that depends on the community. I think it depends on what kind of information you're sharing, and I guess maybe what reaction you're looking for, or what interaction you're looking for. I think, the archives does a wonderful job of being known and being present, and like being present in a lot of different communities. Being on the board has shown me how many different ways people use the archives in different communities. And social media is another great place where you can get like interesting snippets, or like updates about things, blog posts that like delve into things that might not be a news article in the New York Times.
You know, sharing information has really been a big part of my career. And it's meeting communities where they are, you know, speaking their language, going to where they get information, giving them information the way they get it. And that's why I think the archives and what they do is so important now. Digitizing the information, making it accessible to everyone, putting information online, the public programming that the archives invest in. This is the way to get information out.
Doris is already there. I'm a big Instagram fan, and I love what Doris does with their Instagram posts. They probably need to do more. They're just so good, and it's again seeing our history, documents and photographs. Public just love. I mean, I love it, and I know the public loves it too.
One of the things we have to remember is there's different communities, right? My father's 86. If he's walking by and he sees a screen on one of those kiosks in New York, he's going to be interested in that. If he sees it in a newspaper, he's going to be interested in that. Digital natives are not going to look at a newspaper. So I think what's important for us is to recognize there's a lot of different means to share, and we actually have to talk to the communities to ask, how do they learn? How do they get their news? What's helpful for them? And I think that's when we'll be most successful. We have to segment and target different communities based upon what their needs are.